I don't know who this chick is, but I'm starting to enjoy Jessica Jackson's appearances at public comment time at the Chicago City Council. She's this black woman who excoriated the City Council a while back about the spend on migrants as compared to the spend on legal residents and American citizens living in Chicago. Well, she's at it again, and I don't even really know what she's talking about, and I don't really care because she just goes chapter and verse calling out different alderhumans by name with a little commentary on each as she is haranguing the members of the city council present for her speechifying.
Stand up right now. Okay. Scan the room. Scan the room right now. Scan the room. Scan the room. Scan the room, Blakemore. Scan the room. Zoe, get right here. Get right here. Scan the room. Scan the room. Put it on YouTube. We getting ready to make this go viral. This is Chicago. This is Chicago City Council. This is how they show up. This is how they ignore the citizens. This is how they break the law. And then they want to turn around and make like we are wrong for not supporting the Democratic Party. But this is what the Democratic Party looks like in the city of Chicago. Doing public speaking. They don't show up for a quarrel. They on their cell phones. That's Desmond Yancey right there, who's trying to sell out South Shore to super low income condos to make the city look like the projects. Okay? Now you got Conway. Is that Conway or Conway? Conway over there on his laptop because he ain't worried about a thing. He a rich white boy. Okay? And then you got Talaferro.
My favorite right
and you
there.
got Cardona right there. Okay? I'm hoping that they paying attention. Talaferro, I want my rights protected with my case. I trusted you and some other people, and I believe that you're trying to do the right thing. But you are in a corrupt situation. Get that light bulb head, Richard Rodriguez. See, looking like a Chucky doll. See how he has no respect for the citizens. Y'all want to be famous? Y'all want to be famous? Let's make them famous. There go Raymond Lopez.
Yeah, and she brought a chorus along with her. The Conway, the noxious Billy Conway, the
rich white kid.
I look at him on his laptop. He doesn't care about a thing. He's a rich white boy. I wonder if Ray Lopez has ever engendered the ire of one Jessica Jackson.
Well, she was about to say, and she said his name, but then we cut it off. I don't know what she said.
I want to hear Ray Lopez's characterization of it. Alderman Lopez, 15th Ward Alderman, joins us now. Ray, thanks for being with us. Appreciate it.
Dan and Amy, good morning. And yes, she was about to commend me for reading and so that I know what was going on that day. So.
Very good.
Okay.
So you're on the good side of Jessica Jackson, which is probably the better place to stay, based on what I heard. Yeah. Interesting. So we got the news yesterday that Brandon Johnson knows how to cut spending. I don't know where people are getting off calling him a spendthrift. He is proposing cutting $75 million from the police department, canceling 2 months of police academy classes, and ordering some layoffs to tighten the belt here. I mean, that's the sort of fiscal leadership the city needs.
Yeah, hold on to your seats there with this brainchild of his, because not only has he revealed himself to be a hypocrite, but he's also a liar. Because he had promised the city council members that he was not going to allow the budget freeze to impact public safety with any kind of cuts or freezes in hiring in both the police and fire department, both departments which are down employees, by the way. And he has changed his mind and feels that that's going to be what is necessary to plug the $1 billion budget gap in the city of Chicago, all the while maintaining his 167-member police detail to protect him and his family on the west side.
Oh, my God. Are they traveling with him to London, too, when he leaves to go watch the Bears game?
He's on a business trip.
Oh, no, he's not. Hey, do you know what business is he's going to try and court in jolly old England?
Well, I'm sure it's not going to be a restaurant or food cuisine that he's going to bring here, some English restaurant that's going to want to serve any of our high taxes or the smash and grab mentality that we've seen over the past several years here in the city of Chicago. Call it for what it is. It's a nice junket to London so that he and his family can go enjoy a game and then pretend to have a meeting with somebody out there who probably doesn't know anything about where Chicago is let alone what we have to offer here.
I hope he has time for the fish and chips, to get to maybe see Churchill's bunker from World War II, Big Ben, the whole thing.
Yeah, I'm sure.
The budget deficit that you speak of, I mean, can't he just call like Ali G to call Josh Durango and get one of those juice loans and just tighten up the city that way?
What do you think we are, CPS?
Hey-oh. Speaking of CPS, I know. Oh, well, yeah, answer the question first there.
Well, let me just say this. The problem that we have, both in the city of Chicago and in CPS for that matter, is that both government entities, and they are two separate, distinct entities,
are
trying to normalize the spending that had happened during COVID when we had billions of dollars infused into our coffers from the federal government. Now they want to institutionalize all those jobs that were created, normalize all those positions, and shift the burden of funding them to the Chicago taxpayers. And many of us do not agree with that. I, for one, have said let's go back to our pandemic budgets of $12 billion, because that is more in line with where we should be in terms of revenue and other things, and not just borrow for the sake of borrowing so that we can keep the payrolls fat and the productivity low.
But those COVID funds we use to help migrants, to help the illegals.
Well, in a backdoor fashion, yes, because everything that we, in fact, had money for, we reimbursed ourselves, and rather than save that money, save those savings, or do something constructive like, pay down the $35 billion in debt we have, we put it towards taking care of the federal government's responsibility for all these asylum seekers that wound up at our doorstep. 49,000 of which we spent $1.3 billion on last year.
Right, including repurposing unspent COVID funds.
Correct.
Yeah.
All right, so today you guys are going to have a meeting about him replacing, for the second time now, all the school board members. And here's Johnson's reaction to that.
The governor of Florida has been
that's not it. Hold on.
Here
The city council can have as many hearings as they want. There's only one person who has the authority by state law to make appointments, and that's the mayor of Chicago, and that's me.
Your response?
Well, I think the better part to that very chaotic press conference where he was exceedingly condescending to all women reporters is the fact that Mayor Brandon Johnson, in that moment, decided to label anyone who believes in fiscal responsibility as basically a slave owner descendant from the Confederacy.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And I don't know where he gets off making such an outrageous comment. Emancipation Proclamation happened 161 years ago. 6 decades later, my family arrived in this country, and I don't understand how anyone could dare equate me with the slave owners before the Civil War. That's just a desperate attempt to deflect from this power grab, which serves not the students, but only serves the CTU because you stack the deck to give them the most favorable contract-friendly board possible, to take out the $300 million short-term loan to solidify their 1 year's worth of requests, and to fire the only man in the building who stood in the way of doing that, which was Pedro Martinez.
Yeah. So, I mean, the Confederate slave owner thing, I mean, all of this stuff, it ends up just being, one hustle in response to another one, it seems to me. I just don't see where there is some sort of break coming, some sort of moment. Until and unless, say, a pension fund like the police or fire pension fund collapses. I just don't see that there's like much public engagement, meaning residents of Chicago outside of Jessica Jackson, and and even
Zoe Lay, she does another one.
Yeah, and even you're outspoken, but even among the aldermen, and even among the aldermen who are going to roll their eyes when he does his race hustling thing about Confederate slave owners and so forth. It's just all standard fare. I just think that the whole city is inured to it.
Well, I think the I'm a black man argument, you're the descendants of the Confederacy argument, that's all geared towards one group.
Yeah.
And that's the scared white liberals of North Shore, Lincoln Park, that area that support him, and he's basically telling them, don't get any ideas of trying to challenge me. we've seen where some of those state reps who helped create the elected school board have stood up, like Representative Ann Williams, and said, you know what, depending on how you act in the next few days, we may have to look at statewide action to address CPS. And this is what brought on this tirade, because he's being challenged now because individuals see that there's a madness at City Hall that's infecting other governmental units, and they're trying to figure out how do we pull back on some of this. Maybe they went too far. And I think that you're going to see more and more pushback from Springfield.
Yeah.
The more the mayor and his socialists keep poking the bear, because that's what they're doing right now. The Byron Cicho Lopez's and Carlos's of the world, trying to pick a fight with Springfield as though that's going to give them the $1 billion they need to make this happen, and it's not going to. It's going to backfire completely.
A bit. I mean, do you think that an elected school board is going to materially change CPS?
I think that it is a step in the right direction. It was a good intention, but I think that unless you have candidates who fully understand what the responsibilities are of a $10 billion operation and are not just there to be pawns for the narrative, it could be more destructive than positive. Absolutely. One of the board members that the mayor just appointed, Olga Batista, is one of those environmental justice warriors from the southeast side who literally now has the city of Chicago, because of their efforts to shut down General Iron, tied up in a $100 million lawsuit against the Chicago taxpayers for what they did to that company. That's the mindset that we're in danger of bringing to education now.
And Deborah Pope, she's a CTU member, and then Pastor Johnson, he was a lawyer in Ohio who's been disbarred. So I don't know what kind of vetting Mayor Johnson said that was doing or that has been done in order for these people to be on the school board.
The same kind of vetting that's done at the border. So here's the thing. Just the culture in Chicago. I mean, Gary Saul Morrison, who's a professor at Northwestern, makes this point about people who consider themselves victims, like permanent. I'm a permanent victim of society, and who then gain political power. They rule from a place of vengeance. And that's what we had with Lightfoot, in my estimation. That's what we're seeing with Brandon Johnson. That's what we're seeing with a lot of politicians up and down the food chain in Chicago and Illinois. They've been convinced that they're lifelong victims because of their identitarian score, and they rule from a place of vengeance. And you just hear it in the rhetoric that comes forward from the Lightfoots and the Brandon Johnsons. So how do you... Yeah, it seems to me that that's where, and I know that's not your posture, but it seems to me that's what has to change. That message to the neighborhoods into these wards by the aldermen and others, that's what has to change. Just stop it. This is getting not only is it getting us nowhere, it's getting you into corners from which you cannot escape.
Well, it's putting you in a box that can quite literally kill you. As we've seen with the ShotSpotter conversation, where it was the politics over public safety mindset simply so that they could keep a campaign promise, even though we know that lives, those black and brown lives that I constantly hear about, are going to be the ones most impacted. The fact of the matter is that sane members of government need to learn how to push back on this narration that the victim is always in the right, that, this victimhood, even though people have never been a part of it personally, needs to be something that you need to push back on. Look, we know that there's things in our past that are wrong, and we should address them, and we should confront them. But unless you were directly impacted, you don't get to claim that as your mantle, as we see constantly by so many who use them as their talking points for the justification, not only of impacting public safety or education, but now property and housing, as we're seeing on the northwest side, where the socialists were able to sneak through an ordinance that literally is going to take property away from people unless they sell it to their rental properties away from landlords, unless they sell it to their tenant.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Where did we come to this point of pseudo communism here in the city of Chicago? We need to come up with better messaging, because they have their message, and sanity needs to create its own as well.
Yeah.
Do you think Brandon Johnson's done? I mean, his approval ratings are in the low 20s, but this move that he just made, is that the nail in the coffin?
I think there were several, but I will say this. I mean, like an animal that's been backed into a corner, like that's going to just come out crazy and rabid. That's how I feel the mayor, his allies, and the CTU are going to be over the next 26 months, because they know that their approval rating is tanked, that they will never again, even their own allies admit, they will never again win or have control of city government. And right now we are in the smash and grab season of politics, with everyone trying to get what they can before they're shown the door.
Yeah, I mean, it's and even if Brandon Johnson were done, which is almost
Still
3 years,
26 months away.
yeah,
How
right.
many more months away?
2 years in the offing. I mean, even if that were the case, so then what comes next? I mean, it seems to me that the focus, Brandon Johnson is a symptom of the problem, just as Lori Lightfoot was, and what you were getting at before, like these I would call them noxious lakefront leftist honkies. It seems to me like there needs to be some challenging going on that's directed at the city. What kind of city do you want to live in? This is what you are platforming, and we're going to hold you publicly, at least morally and electorally, responsible. I just think the conversation needs to shift where it's not navel-gazing politicians or politicians fighting over fiefdoms, and it needs to really be challenging and even calling out segments of Chicago's creme de la creme.
And I think that's the challenge that we have, right? Because our knee-jerk reaction, my husband and I were just talking about this, our knee-jerk reaction is to get angry at Brandon Johnson, to get angry at his enablers. But that's not going to solve our problem right now, because we can't get rid of them, and you're stuck with them. Right. So let's start focusing on where we need to go post Brandon Johnson, where we need to go in order to have the Chicago that we all can be proud of again and aspire to have people want to be a part of. That should be what our focus is, and just keep pushing on that, because I think in the end, the messaging that comes from the Brandon Johnson socialist clique will falter under its own weight of the weight of its own stupidity.
Yeah,
we need to be prepared to show a different vision for Chicago and be willing to articulate and fight for that. And even if we lose, so be it. But people will notice, and people will want to be a part of something better than to be reminded that they're constantly the victim, that the man's constantly coming after him, that there's all these problems that nobody has a solution for.
Yeah,
we need to be the group of solutions.
Absolutely, and also, I mean, it's a combination. There's a shame piece of this that's, I think, is really important. And so it's going to the City Club or the Economic Club or Chicagoland Chamber luncheon and saying, yeah, here are the solutions, and what the hell is wrong with you people?
Absolutely, and we've gotten a taste of that, Dan, already when you saw the mailers that came out across 50 wards talking about certain aldermen's efforts to decarbonize Chicago and electrify Chicago homes that ultimately would have cost residents, $1,500 to $2,000 more in utility bills. Aldermen thought that was a great idea until the mailers arrived in their constituents' mailboxes, blasting them for their votes. And now all of a sudden, many of my colleagues are nervous because, oh my God, people know how we vote now. And if you continue that strategy, if you continue to showcase that is how you shame them back to reality. It's all fun and games when no one knows what you're doing in the giant granite building known as City Hall. But once all of your votes, all of your actions come home to roost in your ward and people get pissed off because they see how crazy you are, that's when actions will finally start having consequences and change will happen quicker than we think.
Ray Lopez, he is the alderman of the 15th Ward. Ray, thanks for joining us as always. Appreciate it.
And Amy, thank you.
Thank you. And he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
The stories you need to know to start your day. This is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560. The Answer.
This is David Hochberg with an emergency mortgage alert. If you're purchasing a new home or refinancing your existing home, you need to call Team Hochberg, your trusted local lender. It finally happened after 30 long and excruciating